Good. Hello, and welcome to the Training Edge's Ask the Expert series, where masters share their insight of the current trends and topics in the learning and development arena. And with me here is Peter Berridge, co-founder of Shift Positive 360. We're here today to talk about the power of giving and receiving feedback. And Peter has written a book titled Feedback Reimagined, Transform Your Organization. So welcome, Pete. Thanks so much for being here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
It's nice to be here. Thank you, Barbara Ann.
Yeah. So start me off with the importance of generally providing feedback. Why do you think in today's workplace it's so vital and so important?
Well, if you think about the workforce of today, they really are saying, coach me, don't criticize me. And they're looking for development. People want to have autonomy. They want competence, significance. They want relatedness. And so that feedback is really crucial for their continued development.
Yeah. And what I like most about having glanced at your book and really, I want to dive into it deeper is that you have a different approach to the overall concept of feedback. So how would you describe how your approach to feedback is slightly different than the way other people approach it?
So our approach really uses two basic underpinnings. One is about positive psychology, taking the research around positive psychology and incorporating that into the feedback process. And then the second is about social support, that we don't make change by ourselves. We make change through the interactions and the support of others. And so leveraging those aspects of positive psychology and social support.
Yeah, so yeah, I think the topic of positive psychology in the workplace is a little bit foreign for people. So most people think it's all the foo-foo stuff around, really getting deep into somebody's psyche. And can you describe a little bit about what you mean by positive psychology?
Positive psychology is actually the scientific research into what makes life worth living, how it is that individuals, organizations, and communities prosper and flourish. And so it's actually doing in depth, really good analysis and research in those particular areas rather than studying what breaks us down. It's studying what helps us to flourish.
Yeah.
So it is the study of things like strengths and resilience and growth and grit and positive relationships and positive communities and things like that.
And that definitely shows a direct connection to when you think about investing in your people and thinking about, you know, choosing to want people to be successful and helping to relate to retaining and developing talent. How do you see that connection happen, not only with the positive psychology aspect of it, but also generally speaking, how does feedback relate to retaining and developing good talent?
So again, everybody wants to have a sense of belonging. Everybody wants to feel like they are being competent, that they're learning, that they're growing, that they belong, and that what they're doing matters in the world, and that they've got some control, some autonomy over what it is that they're doing. And so that feedback is really helpful for that. And so engaging other people in that process is critical. What's
Yeah.
different about this, if I could offer, is just that, traditionally feedback is we ask about what a person's strengths are, but then we follow it up with what are their quote opportunities or weaknesses. We don't in our approach. We don't ask about weaknesses because we don't care about those. Instead, what we want to understand is when they have been successful, what does that look like in what venues? Utilize solution focused coaching and the research around that. We utilize appreciative inquiry. We utilize social network analysis. We utilize all of these concepts to really build from a foundation of success and strengths and how to leverage those then in a person's growth. And there's a really important aspect of this, which is it's not confidential. The reason that feedback is confidential in most places is because of the negativity bias, our biology, how our brain has developed. And so, if we each have a heightened negativity bias, the person providing feedback and the person receiving feedback, it can make it very difficult. And so, we've couched it in confidentiality, thinking that that's the solution. That actually makes it worse. Instead, what we need to do is teach people how to give constructive feedback. And the way to do that is through solution orientation. Rather than digging into the problems, it's really helping people to identify clearly what would be the solution. When the problem's not a problem, what do you see then? What's that behavior that really would make them even more effective? And the amazing thing, the interesting thing is when you ask that question, the respondent generally doesn't know the answer because of their negativity bias. They've seen what's not working and they want to say they'd stop doing this, they wouldn't do that, they would end this. And we stay with them and we help them to get to what would they do? Where would that happen? What would you see?
Yeah.
And a weird thing happens. They look up to the left oftentimes, and then they come back and they go, she'd do this.
Mm.
Know then they've seen what they want in their mind's eye, so that when that behavior happens in real time, they'll notice it. They'll do just what you're doing. They'll nod their head. They'll maybe lean forward. And it's those little interactions that we give each other that reinforce new behaviors. So what we're doing is priming people to see what they want rather than priming them to see what they don't want.
Yeah.
That's why we don't ask about weaknesses. And what we're doing then, and at that point, when you clearly identify what people want, you can get away from this idea of confidentiality. It doesn't need to be confidential then. We have a saying, when we don't know how to say something constructively, we say it confidentially. But once you teach people how to say things constructively, then they say, I can tell them this myself. And then we go further. We say, and what will you do? What's an overt commitment you can make to that person to support them if that's what they choose to do? And we get that. And that brings in the allyship, because we don't change by ourselves. We change through the interactions with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, you have brought such great insight, because I think for so often people get nervous about the aspect of coaching because they're having to expose things that they're not good at. And you've really flipped it on its dime in a sense where, it goes back to our childhood. We were always looking for that gold star. And if we didn't get the gold star, we're looking for the one thing that we didn't get right instead of focusing on the 9 things that we did out of 10 do right. So I love this idea of not only making it non-confidential, because typically, you build that support team around you to help you achieve the goals that you have. And even just kind of demystifying the idea of whether it be a 360 or an assessment or a coaching opportunity, you really have looked at this more in a positive approach so that people can kind of move forward in that respect. Is there anything else we need to know when we think about, why sometimes feedback is ineffective? Like, you talked about where we kind of look at it from a negativity standpoint,
Yeah.
instead of the positive standpoint. What else makes feedback ineffective sometimes, do you think?
Well, here's what the research shows. Almost 40% of the time, feedback interventions actually result in poor performance and broken relationships.
Mm.
In reading a meta-analysis of feedback interventions, it's striking how bad it is. And so that's why you have to dig in and understand what's broken about it. And so confidentiality. So you lose context. Who's saying what? In what environment? And the amazing thing is that context matters. Different people are looking for different things from that same person. The board is looking for one thing from the CEO, and their senior leadership team is looking for something else. And every person on that senior leadership team is looking for something else. And so when you can teach people how to be constructive, then it allows that leader to be versatile, which allows them to be even more effective. They can show up this way with you, this way with somebody else in your firm, and so forth. And that then helps them to be more effective. So confidentiality is a huge one there that is a breakdown of it. Also, when you have muddled context, well, is this for development or is this for evaluation? Different sorts of feedback. And the better you are at having clear measures of success when it comes to the outcomes themselves, satisfaction scores and revenue generation and stuff like that, then we can really focus. And what our focus is on the developmental feedback.
Yeah.
What do you love about this leader? What can they do to be more effective? How will you help them?
Well, you certainly have intrigued us. So I know that we could talk about this for much more time, right? To take a deeper dive. I guess I just want to leave our audience with one lasting, question. Like, where does a leader start when they want to start changing the way that they perceive feedback, and they want to start either giving feedback more often or even inviting feedback more, receiving it, right? Because both are equally important. Where do you recommend that leaders start with this?
Where we've seen the greatest success is when you start at the top,
Okay.
when the CEO and the senior leadership team have a good experience with it and they go, I want more of this. This is not just about gathering information for me and helping me to be more effective. It's going to change the culture of this organization. We're going to teach people how to be more direct, open, and constructive with each other. And that's what we need to be successful. And we're going to be developing people along the way. So when you can do that, it has an oversized impact. At the same time, I can tell you that a single coach working with a single leader, they're going to start to make that influence in the organization, because every person they interview around that leader is going to change.
Mm.
It's not just about the leader. And in fact, it's not just the coaching role. The role of the coach changes. They're not just working with that leader. They're actually nudging people on behalf of that leader to become an ally. And through that process, each one learns how to move from problem focus to solution focus, how to move from competencies to specific behaviors, how to move from confidentiality to directness, and how to become an ally. for that leader.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Well, Peter, I can't thank you enough for this brief introduction. You've teased us enough to really not only want to take a deeper dive into your book, Feedback Reimagined, but also to just take a fresh look at the way that we perceive feedback and the way that we want to start doing a better job at it. So thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it too.
Good, thanks.